So I never thought that I will sit on an elephant and land a job.
And what do you call it? How do you pronounce it?
Kalari payattu.
Curly?
Kalari.
Curly?
Kalari.
Okay.
Kalari payattu.
Okay. So this is something which we need to fill in.
And I called Bharat, and these were my exact words to Bharat. I said, "Hey, Bharat, looks like I've joined Razorpay." He's like, "Did they make an offer to you?" I said, "No, I don't think they have any money."
You said you wanted to be something related with crime scenes.
Not crime scenes. No, don't put it like that.
Hi guys, this is Manas, CEO and co-founder of Prosperr.io. Today we have a guest, Anuradha. Anuradha is a veteran with her 2 decades of experience in HR and people management. She has worked in a prestigious organization like Symphony, VMware and Razorpay. Anuradha has helped Razorpay to grow from 10-member organization to 2,500-member organization. During this particular time, she has a lot of story to share. She has a lot of feedback learning which we can take from her. And we will just try to capture those particular things in this particular podcast. Hi Anuradha, how are you?
Hi Manas, I'm very well. How are you?
I'm doing great. So let's talk about some of the journey which you have done, okay? We will just try to divide this podcast into various levels. Okay, we will start with a small. We will give some time to your childhood. How was your childhood journey? What impacted you? You have achieved a tremendous amount of success at Razorpay. Okay, and you are continuing to do with whatever you are trying to do with your next organization, the People Anchor. Okay, how did you started your journey? Okay, where you were born, where you were raised, how was your studies, and then how you end up in the HR, and then we will discuss those things in detail.
Hello Manas, thank you for having me here.
Thanks Anu, thanks a lot.
It's fantastic to be part of this podcast, and thank you for your kind words. I'm a born Bangalorean.
Okay.
I was born here in Bangalore, but I was raised mostly in Mysore.
Okay.
I did my initial years of schooling in Carmel English Convent in Nanjangud, which is about 25 odd kilometers from Mysore.
So it's a small village?
It's a town.
Nanjangud
is a town. It is also called as Dakshin Kashi because of the famous Ishwara temple that is there in Nanjangud. That is where my father grew up. It's my father's hometown. My grandfather, my father, my uncles and aunts, they all hailed from Nanjangud. So we lived in a joint family in Nanjangud.
Okay.
And I went to school there till about 5th, and around this time is when we moved to Mysore. I was born in Bangalore. I was raised in Nanjangud, then in Mysore. That's where I did all of my schooling, my education up until I completed masters. I studied in Mysore.
Basically, you spend most of your time in Mysore. Let's say the schooling time.
Yeah.
Okay. And then even the graduation, you did it from Mysore?
My graduation and my post-graduation, both in psychology, I've done it from Mysore. My entire education, the larger part of it from my higher primary was all in Mysore.
Let's talk about the early journey. Okay, when you were, let's say, very young, how were you as a kid, if I talk about?
Very mischievous, very naughty. I think my mother must have had a very tough time dealing with me as a child. My father was the earning member of the family, but my mother was the backbone to everything that we are today, and to even not just our accomplishments, but I think even the things that my father was able to do was because of the support my mother gave him at home. So I grew up in an environment which was, in today's terms, right, it was gender neutral.
Okay.
My father did a lot of household chores. It wasn't restricted to my mother alone. He's a fantastic cook. My mom's, I think, if she ever had an opportunity to be an entrepreneur, I think my mother would have been a wonderful entrepreneur, because she is where I learned a lot of my management skills from. How do you manage people? How do you manage finances at home? She gave us a lot of life skills, and my father was the wonderful balance to all of us in the way he portrayed what a family life should be.
Yeah.
So while I was naughty, I was also an extremely observant person as a child. I have learned a lot from the environment that I have been in. I've learned from people who have been around me. a lot of my influences, a lot of the things that I am today is because of this setup that I had at home and in my friends and in the extended family that we had.
Yeah. Talking about the setup which was provided by your parents in the young age, I was having a conversation with you earlier. You told, let's say, all of your siblings are, let's say, very, very well praised, doing well in their life.
Yeah.
And they have achieved what a normal people would have not thought from the daughter at that time. Correct?
We did.
So would you mind if you share, let's say, what is the recipe which made you all three sisters a successful one? And everyone is not just well placed, but they are trying to achieve, I would say, whatever the max in their category is possible. Correct? So talking about your elder sister, okay, you told about, let's say, she's in HR. Yeah. So would you mind, let's talk about small journey, how she did it. Okay.
Yeah.
And how much impact you had because of her success. Generally, let's say, even for me, my parents, I had a lot of pressure because being an elder, I need to pave a pathway for my younger sister. This is how a small middle class family works. Correct? So if you can throw some light on that, it will be very easy for our audience to understand. Okay, they are not the alone who feel this peer pressure, but it's society in India at large.
Yeah.
Correct? Yeah.
I have two elder sisters. Both were academically way more stronger than I was. My elder sister was the bright mind in the family, and I was always the playful one. My other sister, she was a balance to everything. You know, she was fantastic. I mean, she still is fantastic. So, my elder sister did her engineering. She studied from NIE, which is one of the most prestigious colleges across India today, and one of the most known engineering colleges. And you know, she cracked it very easily. She ended up finishing engineering, and then realizing that there was a world outside of engineering. You know, in those days, it was very typically either in a middle class family in India, it would always be that you're either taking the route of an engineer or a doctor, right? You know, these were the two streams that
this was available for us.
These were the options that you had. I don't think anyone had explored anything beyond that, and we didn't have the means to get to explore what else was really there. You know, you had your libraries, etc., but you know, it was not really considered to be a very lucrative thing. So she ended up becoming an engineer, and then she eventually figured out, because of the exposure that she got after that she could get into HR. By the way, a lot of HR professionals are engineers.
Yeah, that
are engineers. They've studied engineering, and eventually they've gone on to being HRs. But my second sister took a completely different turn. She again was neither interested in engineering or in medicine. So she ended up doing business management. That itself for me was showed that there was something else that we could do apart from this.
Okay.
My elder sister studying engineering, the second sister and becoming an HR, and my second sister actually studying business management, then ended up dabbling with a lot of things and eventually has become an entrepreneur. She runs a successful business which is in Carly's, and the second business that she actually runs, which is supremely passionate about, is Kalaripayattu. So Kalaripayattu is, very loosely put, is a form of martial arts. It's a lot more than martial arts, but Kalaripayattu will teach you so many things about how you can live your life. So it is an ancient art form from Kerala, and she at one point started doing this as a passion project for herself, in terms of reviving ancient Indian art forms.
Got it.
And then she, I think, zoomed in on Kalaripayattu, which I think she was most passionate about during this process. And she is a trained Kalaripayattu professional today, and she does this in several schools to teach youngsters Kalaripayattu, and she has a set of gurus who also teach Kalaripayattu.
So it's she has created a business out of it, or it's just a hobby project as of now?
It is a proper business.
Awesome. Where are these basically different things?
So
which places are there?
These, in her academies are in schools, in certain colleges, and this is for people who are in any age group can actually learn Kalaripayattu. So she has other in her academy, she has people who come and take personal training on these. There are small camps that she does within apartment complexes, etc.
Okay. And what do you call it? How do you pronounce it?
Kalari Payattu.
Kalari?
Kalari.
Kalari? Okay.
Kalari Payattu.
Okay. So this is something which we need to fill in. Now talking about the next phase. You talked about your sister. Now let's talk about who you were when you were very small. When you were, let's say, I would say 8 or 9 years of age.
Yeah.
Okay. When you were still, let's say, your mind was growing. Okay. What you can recall whatsoever. Let's say with the time we forget most of our activities or action which we have taken in past, but still we get a glimpse of it. So if I have to know Anuradha, or I would call you Anu. So who Anu is?
I was very playful.
Okay.
And I always wanted to just have fun. For me, I don't think I've ever done anything which I don't feel like it was fun anymore. If it stops being fun, then I stop doing it.
So this I have seen. You have been very straightforward with your life. You don't do something which you don't like doing it.
Yeah.
Okay. We have this conversation. I was talking in conversation and I was thinking, we did have a same kind of thought. Okay. So my thing is, I also try to do those activity where I feel I'm passionate about, and I can make the changes. Whether I never see whether I am capable enough or not, but I just try to take it up and let's see how this particular activities goes. Correct. So this is something which I feel, let's say, if we do such kind of thing, it keeps us alive. It keeps us driven. Okay, it gives us a new purpose.
Absolutely.
Yes. So generally people used to ask, okay, what is the purpose? Okay, of your life, what you are trying to achieve. It's totally different from the segment. From first 20 years, you just want to be a successful person. After 20 years, you just want to be a successful employee. And after that, you want to do something else. It's a different phase of life where you want to be successful at different things, and this keeps you kicking in. Yeah.
I remember as a child, my mother always told me one thing. She said, be independent. Be independent in your thoughts. Be independent in your actions. Be independent in who you want to be as a person. In all of these years, I've never heard my parents say money is important.
Yeah.
Not one day have my parents told me, you have to get a job and earn a lot of money. So that itself for me was the foundation to how I envisioned my life to be. It was like, do what you want to do. Make sure that you do the best job without harming anyone in the process. So integrity, courage, having fun were, I think, these three things became very driven in our minds at all times. At no time was, like I said, no time did they ever come and tell me you have to go and get a job which will
give you X amount of money.
They never said being rich is the way to be happy.
Yeah, even I agree. Let's say money cannot give you, let's say, satisfaction kind of thing. It's a purpose which you work for. Yeah. Okay, that give you satisfaction.
So for me, everything that I do it wholeheartedly. And even if it is wiping a table or making something as simple as rice and rasam at home, which is a staple for us, I don't think it is done because it has to be done. It's never a job for me.
Mm-hmm.
It is done because I want to do it.
Got it.
And I put my heart and soul into doing that.
Okay.
And that is something that I saw my parents do in everything. Being, simple chores of how they lived as a couple itself was very inspiring for us.
Mm-hmm.
At a time when I think men, their roles were mainly defined in going out of the home, working, and
You already mentioned about the gender neutral kind of. You already have at home. Yeah. Okay, your father used to do some chores which was at that time very restricted to the, let's say, female of the house.
Yeah, and those became my ground rules for my life. And it wasn't like my father has never cribbed about it. He has never told me, or I've never heard him say, oh, I have to do this, I've gone out and done this, I have to come home and do this. It was never that. It was the mere fact that, oh, Amma is doing this, I'm not doing anything else right now, let me help her with it. Right? When you see some things like that, and when they're doing it happily, they're not just saying things to you, but they're showing you the way of life. So for me, that became one of the primary things of me enjoying things that I was doing. And if I stopped enjoying it, I didn't see a point, because I was not giving my 100%. And if I wasn't giving everything that I have to it, to me, it just did not make sense at that time.
Got it.
So I would pivot to doing something that I enjoyed more. So
and let's talk about how was your college. Why do you end up choosing the, let's say, the subject which you chose? Correct. I love to understand. Let's say sometimes people are compelled to do this. Okay, and sometimes it's okay. Sometimes it's luck or by chance. Yeah. I just love this story, how you end up getting that kind of, let's say, and the subject which you chose, okay, let's say, are rare in nature. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about.
By now, we can safely assume that I was never forced to do it.
Yeah, of course. Of course, this is one thing which I can safely say. Let's say you were never forced. It is what you wish to do it. Okay, so just tell about the subject.
For a long time with you. It's not that I always knew that I wanted to be an HR.
Yeah.
That I always knew that I wanted to do this in life. I have gone from being a fighter pilot to being a forensic scientist.
Okay.
I've lived that journey through different phases of my life. But what I did know always, and that was again inspiration from home, mostly was that I wanted to do something that would leave a lasting and a positive impact on people. Anything that I do, and I think that was my end goal. And I wanted to be a clinical psychologist. I took up.
Can you explain more about this? What does this word? It sounds like a very big word.
Clinical psychologists are basically, you will easily know them as counselors. In layman's terms, they're counselors. So when you have a problem, people today, I think it's a lot more widely accepted today. They say, why don't you speak to a counselor?
Yeah.
Why don't you see a therapist? These are,
these are the broader terms. So now after this, okay, I was also having a discussion early morning today. You said you wanted to be something related with crime scenes.
Not crime scenes. No, don't put it like that. Not crime, but I wanted to be a forensic scientist. Okay. So I studied criminology, psychology, and sociology as my majors during my graduation, and I was very fascinated with how forensic scientists work and the and the day-to-day life that they get to see. It seemed very glamorous from the outside. It felt like, they could go to crime scenes.
What happened to that ambition of yours?
Hey, my parents definitely are very open. They are very they're very forward in their thought process and everything. But then, they didn't want me to get called to a crime scene in the middle of the night. So I think that's the only thing my parents are not very for. But they never said you can't do it. But I understood the hesitation, and I think, being the good.
But it was better. Let's say, with such kind of empathy, it's very difficult for you to survive in the forensic environment.
And it was not a very. I don't know what career choices I would have had in India if I had to do that. But I never had this vision of ever wanting to go out of India and working anywhere.
Yeah. It's good time to be in India. India,
it has always been a good time to be in India, and it will always be a good time to be in India.
Yeah, I advocate for the same.
Yeah, and like I want to go and travel. I want to see places. I want to get as many experiences as possible. But this is where I want to be.
But we both are builder. I'm trying to build my company. You are trying to build your company. So what I think, this is the right time to build for India.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So now let's talk about how you end up let's say, first HR job. Okay. So let's talk about that. I guess the first company. Let's talk about the first company, the first role. The first job is always important for everyone, correct? Yeah. Let's discuss that, so that even our audience, let's say whosoever aspire to be HR, can figure it out. Okay, they are at this stage, what they need to do. Yeah. They can have a playbook for something which can be used by younger generation.
I was strongly discouraged from studying organizational behavior because organizational behavior, you usually again end up being some sort of a psychologist, and it's not back then it was not a typical route of getting into an HR. Every HR person had to had to have an MBA in human resources, and they had to be good in putting up processes, so to say. So this was not a typical route of people studying psychology and becoming an HR.
So most of the thing what you suggested, like, and in early, now it has become very common. Okay.
Now it is very common. Back then it was not.
So back then it was more felt like a clerical job. Let's say you sit behind the desk, you prepare an Excel sheet, you make an SOPs for the each and every process.
You write policies.
You write the policies. You engage your role. But now, of course, it has. Let's say as we are growing, the organization has matured. You cannot force an SOP without testing the sentiment of an organization.
Emotions play a key role today in how you deal with people in various organizations.
Yeah. So let's start about the first job. How do you end up getting it?
Okay, so it's a very so HR was not like the role, right? But I made this choice, and I felt I could be a better HR person in an organization because of my background in psychology. Why I felt so was also because India, as a country back then, was not did not have a lot of psychologists as professionals, right? They would have a lot of engineers would be HRs, MBAs would be HRs, plain graduates, other graduates would be HR, but nobody specifically thinking, okay, if I'm a psychologist, maybe I can do a better job as an HR was never a thought process.
This was never experimented, I would say. Now it is
Now I would like to say that, there was some forethought in me that said, at some point in time there will be organizations which will need psychologists.
Yeah. Even I agree on this. Yeah.
Stresses and pressures and everything. You will need people who are able to display empathy a lot more naturally than anyone else. Either it comes innately to you, or you're in a position to be able to read the room better.
Got it.
Right? So I said, okay, but whatever it is, my mind and my heart is set that I want to be an HR, and as against my peers who had done an MBA and me being a psychologist, there was almost I think 200% difference to my first salary to the entry salary that was there for an MBA.
Yeah.
And what I made back then would not even suffice for my conveyance expenses. So it was that meager a salary that I started on. And this was in 2004.
At that time, MBA was more glorified.
Yeah, and a lot of people wouldn't forget about getting a job. I don't think anyone even wanted to interview me because I didn't have an MBA and I was applying for an HR job after master's. So I thought they either said I was underqualified to be an HR, but my degree was an overqualification from the degree itself because I had a master's in psychology, and MSc for recruiting job was, you're too qualified. I don't know how that made any sense because engineers would be recruiters.
So at that time, I would say, let's say...
But they would get more salary than I did.
Yeah. So, of course, what I see, let's say, engineers is, let's say, now it has become something like a graduation, which you do it and then you specialize with whatever the job which you feel like or which you take up as an occupation. Okay, but back then, of course, it was, let's say, a copy of Western's. Let's say you need to have a, let's say, MBA degree to work as an HR. But now if you say, let's say, even when I do a lot of HR interviews for my organization and some of my friends ask for those things, I just look at EQ. How much empathy this guy can add up in my organization. Correct? So that
is very important for everybody. Forget about HRs. I think EQ is a basic thing that we need to have as human beings.
Yeah.
Because you have to be empathetic. You have to have some sense of emotional quotient in you for you to be able to even go into an organization and work, right? I mean, you could have somebody who's working from 9 to 6 without a break.
Yeah.
Unless you're observant about it and you feel for that person and you've been in that situation, it's very hard to just continue to do that. So I think it's a very basic need that every person should have. But it's not common.
It's very difficult to find. IQ is easy to find. Let's say as I am growing at my career, okay, as I am growing, I'm seeing more, I'm interviewing a lot of other people, okay, and even I'm working with a lot of my peers. I see getting an IQ is very easy, but getting an EQ, you don't have any formula, or you would have passed this examination, you are now your EQ would be
difficult.
It's very
that also,
yeah,
right?
it's very difficult.
How
It's
to put that into a matrix of how.
And it depends upon various other things. Let's say you said how you were brought up and all those kind of things. Let's say where you have
who you are as a person and the environment that you grew up in, not just in your younger days, but even later. The organizations that you work in also helps you grow as a person, because you look up to so many people who are your seniors in the system. You know what you want to be. You also know what you don't want to be. So, the life experiences actually add to who you end up becoming as a person. And the leadership qualities that you have is what will help people follow you as a person. So, in a lot of ways, I think all of those shape the personality of a person. So, my first job, that is where I actually learned a lot of things. My first job was in a company called Pinnacle India. The founder there, Mr. Ramkumar, he is somebody who is the epitome of integrity and grace that I've seen in founders. What we are talking about, nurturing talent today is what I saw Ram doing in his organization. There was an office boy in Ram's organization who he had empowered so much and taught him so many things of the professional world that he was able to break the poverty chain for his family and come up in life. He ended up being one of the best employees that Pinnacle had seen, and he was training several people on how to run a few products and how to sell products, etc. He became one of the best salesmen that Pinnacle had seen at that time.
And as you mentioned in our, let's say, morning thoughts, let's say you need a single person to break the chain of poverty. Absolutely. Okay, and we need to figure it out whether this, let's say, whomsoever we are employing, okay, whether he can do that. Okay.
No, that it is not about you identifying somebody. It is about you noticing potential that someone has. You're not doing this with the intent to break the poverty chain. You're doing this, and maybe it was not a poverty chain. It was just that, he, with his qualifications and with what he had done at that time, he could have just been an office boy. But the fact that your founder has seen a potential in somebody who is doing a different job, and you're able to break that and bring him out of that job to do something that he can do better, which can give him a better quality of life. That makes a big difference to what you're seeing as in your first job, right? So that stood by me for a very long time. And in every job, I would go on to search if there was somebody who needed that attention or that push from us. If somebody needed me to probably show them a different career path, something like that. So it was a very inspiring 1.5 years for me with Pinnacle India. And like everybody else, I had big corporate dreams. I wanted to do something better. I wanted to learn, because here I was running HR for Pinnacle India. And I had no prior experience. I was fresh out of college. This was my first job, and I was doing everything that I knew. And then I'm a frog in the well, right? So I wanted to experience world very differently. So I said, okay, I need to learn from people who know better than me. I need to experience a different set of things. So I took a break, not knowing what to do next. I took a break. And every break for me starts with some sort of a travel. So I traveled a little bit and I came back, and then, but I'm also not happy just sitting at home and not doing anything. I have to be constantly occupied in my mind and doing something that is meaningful to me and that makes me feel like I'm being productive in what I'm doing. So that's how I ended up meeting my next employer in Gilbert, Tweed. And but the day I met my boss then, I told her that I'm in this for a very short stint and I want to get into the corporate. She said, do what you have to. These are the projects that we have. That's where I learned headhunting. And headhunting also was not something that was...
it was never taught to you, but you learned. You learned during the process.
You don't do that in the corporate either, but it's such a fantastic skill to have.
Yeah.
You're working for one of the executive search firms. Gilbert Tweed at that time was very well known, and I ended up working there only for 3 months, but the kind of friends that I made there and the learnings that I had was fantastic. My big corporate break came with Symphony. I met one of the senior recruiters at Symphony on an elephant ride in Coorg. And
so it's a different story of its own, correct?
So I never thought that I will sit on an elephant and land a job in Symphony. So I ended up telling him that I'm working here in the search firm. It's fantastic, but I want to see what the corporate world has to offer. And he said, hey, you know what? I think we are looking for people. Why don't I introduce you to Guru Charan, who today is one of my dearest and closest friends, my then boss. And I went and interviewed with Guru, and Guru had some major problems that he gave me during the interview process to solve. And I was like, who is going to do all of this? You have to come here, hire people, and, fill the positions with the right set of folks who are supposed to do this, right? That's what you're thinking. But no, he's asking you to give him plans of how you will end up hiring 100 people in 20 days and all of that. It just went straight over my head, and then I didn't know what to do. I came back and I was like, I don't think I'm going to get this job. I think I failed miserably at it. But I tried. But to my surprise, they called me back and they said, you're hired. And that is where my Symphony and my corporate stint started. And I hope, Guru, if you're listening to this, I hope I didn't disappoint you, because we ended up hiring a lot of people, we ended up meeting most of the goals that Guru had promised.
Yeah.
And it was a very fruitful time for me. I was on a career high at that time.
I would also say, let's say, Guru showed some kind of trust in you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. I don't know if it was trust or, what compelled him to do that. But he put his trust in me, and I really hope to God that I did not disappoint him during this. But Guru ended up leaving Symphony in 3 months.
After you joined?
Heartbroken.
Yeah. After you joined?
Yeah. And then there was also this diversification at Symphony that was happening. This diversification meant that, you are going into an organization which is eventually going to be spun off to another company.
You got it.
So, and Romesh Wadhwani was a very powerful, I still think he is a very powerful leader in the industry and a visionary back then. Once during one of our town halls, he said, somebody asked him in a rapid fire round, what is your biggest fear? And he said, nobody turning up in office, not having people in the office and not showing up for their roles is my biggest fear. And, it just struck how important an HR's role in an organization is.
So people undermine the role and the qualities which is needed to be let's say a successful HR. People think HR generally belongs to SOP creation or the process oriented work, but HR is more like how
the soul of the company.
It's a soul of the company. Yeah, I would say it's a soul of the company. And if your founder appreciate that particular kind of culture, you can create in any company. I was just listening to a podcast. Okay, that podcast said, if it is because of my team, I have been able to make this company a $300 million company. If I would have not got such a strong team, I would have made it a $3 million company. Because once you have, let's say, multiple people working on the same goal, it exponentially compounds, okay? Yes. And that leads to what you see a Razorpay of today, or what you see a Flipkart of today, or what you see a Walmart of today. It's important how the soul of the company grows along with the company's growth, correct?
Yeah. So this was diversifying into another organization. I saw this as a fantastic opportunity for me to learn other things. So now, if an organization is moving and you have a handful of people who are going to be there, that means to say that the opportunities that you see in this entire journey will be very different. if you're in a set organization, you have set people doing set jobs and roles and responsibilities. But if you're going to be in a new place, then you can build it from scratch. While this was not building from scratch because we were already 1,000 people in the organization, but a lot of the things that we had to do in places outside of just the headcount addition to the organization. For example, your HR processes, your policies, everything had to be done from scratch. You had a playbook, you had a parent company that you could refer to, but things had to be customized to what this organization.
Yeah, and as what I have seen, as the organization grows, or it let's say keeps on adding different vertical, the quality of people or the type of people which is required to pull off that job also changes. Absolutely. And once you have a different kind of people coming in, the HR policy need to be updated. It's not a static process which you created for this, and now that particular process will run to the three years. It keeps on changing, let's say, every now and then, and you just need to keep on upgrading that process.
You have to, because it doesn't work the same way. When you're 10, it's different. When you're 1,000, it's different. When you're 5,000, it's closer to what the 1,000 could have been. But from 10 to 1,000 is a very different ball game, right? So you have to constantly, 10 to 100 itself is very different.
Yeah. I see that. Currently, we are at the stage where we are trying to reach 100 people, and it comes with a lot of challenges.
It does. It does. So now with this in place, I did so many things at Symphony. In the 3 years, I think I did at least 10 years
of the work.
I learned HR operations, I learned business partnering, I learned employee engagement. There were times when we had to, manage 1,000 member engagement activity. Like, you have to keep them on their toes. Newsletters were being sent. You're constantly in amidst people who want to do new things. So I became an L&D coordinator. I did all of that while holding my recruiting job. Yeah. So it wasn't that I moved from one role to the other. I just had the recruiting job, and then I had all the other things that were added on top of it, which meant a lot of hours of work.
Yeah.
I don't think in my entire career I've ever gone home in 8-10 hours. It has always been at least 10 to 12 hours at work. That's the number of hours that we had to spend if we had to do all of that. And then recruiting was also such that you had to print your own offer letters.
And it was not as automated. You don't have any ATS software at then.
No, there is no automation.
Yeah, now it's just you click a button, you get a resume.
There's nothing, right from your sourcing to your scheduling to setting up these interviews, the reschedules that needed to be done, briefing the candidates, everything, to the extent that we had to sign with our name for the manager and hand the offer letter in person. It was a hard copy that we would give to people. Now when I think back, I feel so ancient about how we would run these processes. So we did all of that. Then I ended up going on my long break of travel again for a few months. I was out, I was traveling. I was looking at what to do next.
So whenever you take a break, you travel?
I have to travel because that's the only way I know to reach.
So do you think so? Travel help you to reset the brain, help your thought process?
Yeah, and it makes you a different person when you come back because you're soaking in so much. You're meeting different people.
Yeah.
Otherwise, this is what I call break the monotony. Mm-hmm. So I'm very infamous at Razorpay for the person who always forced ethnic day upon people. So I would send people on ethnic day if they came in jeans or in non-ethnic wear, they would be sent home, or they had to go and buy kurta and come. So I'm very infamous for that.
Yeah, and most of the time Razorpay was in a area where you can have a mall nearby.
There was Forum all the time, and there was also Star Bazaar at the time, so they had to go, and so that was your choice. If there was an ethnic day, it would be like, okay, you better wear it, otherwise Anu's going to send you home, and she can do that. So this for me is breaking monotony. It's very different.
Yeah, let's start. How did you got this role at Razorpay when no one knows about Razorpay? And we were so let's discuss about that particular thing. And then you helped Razorpay to grow from 10 people to 2,500 people.
Yeah, and Razorpay helped me grow a lot in my career as well. So it was fantastic partnership.
So let's start with how did you end up getting this role?
I don't know, really. Honestly, when I think
did you apply for it?
No, I did not. So after VMware, again, I was on a break. and I was still dabbling with a lot of things. I was like, what should I do next? Because nobody was willing to give me a fully non-recruiting role.
Okay.
Because I was known as one of the best recruiters that
So you
people
had
had
already
seen.
earned a title of headhunters. Let's say.
I was not really a headhunter, but if you give me any role, I would find the person for it. And I had very few no-shows in the recruiting world.
Awesome.
So I would chase my candidates in such a way, not annoyingly, but I would always talk to them about the value of them joining the organization. So for me, I think at a very, very young age, I understood that people will join not because you want them to join, but they see something of value that you have that you can give them, right?
They need alignment with you. Otherwise, you never stay there for a long time.
And what is in it for them? That's what everybody wants. And that I think I caught on to that very quickly. So after VMware, all my bosses are my best friends today,
Okay.
Like I end up having fantastic relationships with my bosses. My boss was the one who told me that I was done in VMware. He said, Anu, you're not going to grow anymore. You've done everything that you could have done. Now you just leave. Go find something that is of interest to you. Now there is no motive for me to work in VMware anymore.
When you don't have any let's say challenge to solve or any problem to solve, you generally don't feel, let's say, excited about it to coming to office and showing up with the same kind of energy.
So I've never been materialistic, so money never mattered to me. I was like, okay,
so
don't get a salary.
That was never part of your DNA.
Yeah, it was never that. So I said, okay, and then I, whatever savings I had, I put all of that into travel. I finished the travel. I came back. Then some of my friends needed help. People I'd worked with in the past, they'd started up new things on their own. They wanted me to help them with some policies and everything. I said, okay, whatever limited knowledge I have, I'll help. So I would go to different companies, meet people, tell them what needed to be done and how they could, address some of the problems that they had, etc. All the while also interviewing for full-time roles. I had done services, I had done product, I had done all of these also in some way. Were new organizations and I had built it. VMware was very new in India when I joined. So we built these organizations.
You had a knowledge of all the verticals. Now you wanted a role where you can prove you can run this.
I had not done consulting.
Okay.
So I wanted to do something in the consulting bit. So I had an offer from one of the big fours. I was to join them. I had taken a week's time for me to think about it because it also meant a lot of commute within Bangalore, and I was not ready to commute that far because I knew that it was not the most efficient way for me to work. Then somebody called me out of the blue. They said, there's this company called Razorpay and they are a fintech. I didn't even understand what fintech meant at that time.
Got it. It was very new term.
It was a new term and I was like, what is that? And I didn't understand what a payment gateway was, nothing. And if I went back to Google what Razorpay was for me to even read about that, there was only one small bite in Crunchbase which spoke about Razorpay and founders and that they had got some angel funding. That's all there was.
You joined when they raised angel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, angel and I think also Series A, which was not yet out in the public.
But yeah.
And there was no information.
How many people were there when you joined them?
10.
Okay. And
the founders and their network of their juniors and seniors who worked with.
So it was very close group.
It was a close group. So when this person called me, I said, but I already have an offer. I think I'm going to take it up because my pocket was dry. I didn't even have money to take a bus to go to one of, because all of these were friends and I was I never took money from any of them for the work that I was doing for them. So I have to get a job and I have to get a paying job. And this person went on insisting. He said they've met some of these people from VMware and they know that they have the skill, but they were not the right personality for them and they didn't align. And then he was like, just meet them for a coffee. So I went to, they didn't even have an office. And it was out of some home they were all operating out of. You're operating from a house. Still very hard for you to digest that somebody's operating from a house.
Yeah.
And it's not a very...
It's very common now, but at that time...
And only Flipkart had done that.
Yeah.
And they took me to a coffee shop, and then there were 2 young boys who came and met me.
Okay.
And we were both talking about what I wanted to do, and I really love what I do. For me, I think there is no job better than an HR's job in this world, because you really have the power to change people's lives. If you did your job right, and if you are able to understand and fathom the founder's vision and that aligns, then you can do the best job, and it is the most powerful job in an organization. I just wish everybody understands and realizes how good that is. And I went and I was telling them, about what I want to do and all of that. Then it was that. And then I go back home in the evening. I had this person call me again, and then he was like, Anu, they want to meet you again. 2 hours. So there are all of 10 people, and I've met 2 already. 2 more people have to meet you. And then I went and met them as well. But in the first meeting itself, something was already very positive about the conversation. It felt very different. It was very refreshing to see somebody who thinks so much like how you want an organization to be.
Yeah.
What is it?
First, not them telling you what to do.
Yeah, it's more about, it is never about, I'm telling you this, you do this. It is more about what do we do together to build this organization. That was a fantastic and a very powerful thing for me to kind of, this was like a, magnet getting attracted to the iron, and, I just went and stuck onto it. The second set of meeting, again, and very, very bright, by age they are they are in their 20s, but then they're speaking with so much wisdom and so much love for what they want to build. Not just in business. The business, of course, was there, but what can we do together to make India a different landscape of how we look at companies? And that was very refreshing for me.
It was their passion which came in.
And to me, and then I think I went back that evening and I told Bharat that it seems like a very interesting opportunity. It's a plain ground. You can build what you want here. And the fact that there are people who want to do things right is fantastic. And that is when I think the talent drain in India was at its peak.
Yeah. So it was early 2014.
Yeah,
16.
everyone was just, going out of country all the time. And we have the smartest of people, but they don't have a proper platform here. So the fact that somebody is building that can change the landscape of India's workforce. So that's how I think I got very interested in that. And then I think finally I met Shashank. And I went very prepared for Shashank's conversation, like, oh, he's the founder and, I don't know what he's going to ask and all of that. He didn't ask me any HR questions. He just spoke to me about psychology through and through. And for 2 hours, we were just chatting, we were just talking about so many things. It felt like a very, very personal conversation. It had nothing to do with me being in the job. And then, this happened on a Thursday and then it all went very quiet. And suddenly on Monday morning at 8 o'clock, Shashank messages me saying, can you come home? I'm like, huh? Why home? And there is like, oh, office. I think I still have some of those chats somewhere. And then he gave me the address. I went there. These people, there's one person who is creating my email ID. There's another person who is creating my Slack ID. There's another person who is telling me what the product is about. I'm very perplexed in the whole thing. I don't know what is happening because I have an engagement that day that I had to go for a few things. There was a lunch engagement that afternoon, and I thought it was like an hour's thing. He said, I want you to meet the rest of the team. So I'm not prepared
it was
for any of this.
It was formal.
And then I called Shashank. I called Shashank that time. Like, Shashank, what's happening here? He said, you've joined. I said, okay, I don't know how to react to this.
They didn't discuss about the CTC.
No, there was no offer, nothing. I to the extent that I thought their seed funding was so small that they cannot afford to pay me anything. And I just called Bharat from the terrace. I said, can you excuse me for a bit? I'll make a call. And I called Bharat, and these were my exact words to Bharat. I said, hey, Bharat, looks like I've joined Razorpay. He's like, did they make an offer to you? I said, no, I don't think they have any money. Will you please support me for some more time till such time that, we figure out what it is? I really like the people and I just want to be part of this. And that's how I joined Razorpay. Okay. And then, after a few days, I think, we all realized that there was no offer. I went and spoke to Shashank, and then they gave me an offer. I was like, okay. And I didn't even negotiate. There was nothing. It was just, this is what it is. Like, okay. It was like...
So now tell me the journey, let's say, from the 10 people employees to 100. We'll come to 100 to 1,000 later. How was this 10 to 100 people, let's say, let's say, I would say, join the organization? What was your force there? Were you doing alone, or you had, let's say, 2 more people, or let's say, helping you out? How did this happen?
Very, very difficult journey.
Got it.
So much so that I think every day I question myself as to what I'm doing in this organization for at least 6 months of me being there. Because everything that I had done would not fit this organization.
Got it.
Or what we were trying to build. Back then, it was not even an organization. It was a
family.
Team. It was a team of 10 people who were working together. And they all lived in the same house. It was not just that, we were working out of that place.
Mm-hmm.
There were people who lived there. Mm-hmm. And on the ground floor, there were one set of people lived there, one set of people lived in another house in the same building. So I would wake up and I would go dressed to work. But you will see people just waking up and everything's in that space, right? For me, the environment itself was very different. It was refreshing, definitely, but it was very different.
It did match your any expectation?
No, and there was this, I would take lunch from home, but there was this lady who would cook for all of us. And the days that she did not come, there are days when I've actually made rice and no rasam. That's a whole new story of how rasam, dal mostly, but mostly rice. Somebody, see, again here, Pranav would make poha one day, Ayush would make something else. So it was the days. There was no job description, so to say, for us. All of that was very refreshing and very different. So if your day-to-day is like this, of how you even go to this space called office, you can imagine how different the thought process is. So I had to unlearn everything that I'd learned in the corporate world of an HR to become a people's person in Razorpay. So much so that we didn't even want to call ourselves human resources. We called ourselves people ops because it was more to do with people, and we didn't want these traditional names at all. Even our job titles were thought of very differently. Our job descriptions were written very differently. So for me to unlearn all of this took nearly about 3 to 4 months, and for me to experiment with the different thing took another 3 months. So for 6 months I was still debating if I was doing the right thing. Not because this seemed wrong for me, but because of the fact that if I'm not able to align to this, then their progress will be stunted. For me, it was always the organization first. How do I bring value in what I am doing, which helps the organization grow? And that again was a very different thought process even for HRs, because I don't think HRs ever had that kind of power in any other organization.
Yeah.
But in Razorpay, HR actually dictated a lot of things. It was the most different set of people that I worked with. The thought process being different. The ability to want to listen to what the other person's point of view is was something that I'd never seen anywhere else.
But mostly you get this kind of character in a company when your founder supports you with this all thing.
Yes.
Correct? It cannot be again driven. Let's say if you don't have a top boss who is pushing, or let's say who has a mindset like this, correct, an open mindset, correct?
And I don't think anybody can be successful in any organization if these set of people, all of them are aligned to something. And for that, you also need to be able to unlearn. Because I could have done X work in Razorpay, but I cannot just go and replicate the same thing somewhere else, because that organization has a whole new DNA.
So as you said, let's say the HR, as you already mentioned in our previous conversation, HR is a soul, correct? And each different company has a soul of its own kind, correct? The DNA changes, the process changes, the SOPs changes, everything. It is not, let's say, I would say in human resource or anything which deals with human. It's not a single formula which can fit all the questions, correct?
Yes.
It need to be tutored, but it need to be tweaked the way it can be accepted in the organization.
Everything has to change for that organization.
Got it.
Tomorrow, if let's say the same set of founders form another organization, the way we operate in that will be very different from how we operated at Razorpay.
Yes.
Because there were so many learnings. There were more failures than successes. Today, when we look back at this journey, today we say that, Razorpay is a successful company. What you've done there is successful. How you've handled things is successful. But when you look at when we started, I've done more blunders in Razorpay than anywhere else. But today, in hindsight, they seem as blunders. But at that time, when you're actually doing it, you're looking at it from a situation perspective. You're looking at what is right in that situation. You're not in that situation anymore. So the way you think now will be very different. But there, you're in a high pressure environment. You're supposed to get, there is an output that is expected of you.
Yeah, it's fast moving environment, fast paced environment.
Dynamic at a whole new pace. You cannot, nobody can keep up with that dynamism. You don't have time for execution. If you lose one day, you've lost so many things that you could have done in that one day.
Got it.
For me, there was no Saturday, there was no Sunday, there was no festival. My 7.5 years was completely dedicated in heart, mind and soul to Razorpay.
Yeah. And even even I was having discussion, you said, let's say, the amount of learning which you got from Razorpay is tremendous.
It's 30 years of experience in a corporate that I saw in the 7 years.
Yeah. So it's just because of the determination and let's say your attitude toward the organization. It cannot be, let's say one basis, correct?
Reciprocated.
Yeah.
And reciprocated equally, if not more.
Yeah.
So
you got a lot of learning from Razorpay, and you gave a lot of things to Razorpay.
I don't know about the second part, but I got a lot from Razorpay in terms of the assets are the people, is the knowledge. For me to even be able to talk about some of the things that I can very safely today say that not too many people have seen the journey that I have. All of this is because the team's faith in me. It's not just the founders, right? The founders obviously, paved the way for a lot of things. But then you have all of your team members, the extended team members, every other person who is working with you during this journey. They are the ones, they are actually the true support system that you have for yourself. And you can never negate that. I could never have done even 1/4 what I think I was able to do at Razorpay without the help of
the founders.
Without the help of the entire team.
Okay.
Be it my own team that we grow to, let's say, the engineering team, the product team, the operations team, the support team, the sales team. Everyone stands by you because nothing is one person's job. Like there are days when I've seen team members who've mopped the floor because they saw something that had fallen down. And this is not just, anybody. This could be a leader in Razorpay at that time.
Yeah.
But there you're not a leader. Nobody's showing authority. You could be a developer and you will still have the same voice that a founder will have.
Yeah.
Decision can be different.
Yeah.
But the fact that you're allowed to express your opinion, your opinions are heard. And they're actually thought about. Is this the right way to go about it?
Yeah.
All of these make a very big difference to how you shape the culture of an organization.
Got it. Let's say you have already talked about the Razorpay. Okay, now you have moved out of Razorpay. It has been, I guess, let's say 1.5 year kind of thing.
Close to 2 years now.
So can you tell me what you are doing now? Nowadays, what is your life look like, or what you have started? I heard you started a company called the Paper Anchor.
Yeah.
What is all about the Paper Anchor?
What Razorpay did was gave me access to a lot of people, gave me access to a lot of founders. It put me on a platform where the work that we had done had started inspiring several organizations to want to do things differently in their own setups. I would be on constant calls with some founders, with HRs who wanted to who wanted to make a name for themselves, who wanted to think differently, who wanted to operate differently in an organization, no longer wanted to be just people pushers. And I started having these conversations with a lot of people. So it started off more as a passion project, which eventually turned to a company today, where I have the opportunity and the great luck now that I get to speak to a lot of founders. I act as sounding board for them. I coach them on how they should be putting forward principles, how their value systems translate to actionable culture elements that form the ethos of the organization. And there are a lot of HR professionals who come to me wanting to be mentored if they are stuck somewhere. How should they be operating? How do they create a space for themselves amongst the many HRs that are there in the industry? How do they get buy-in from their founders, from their leaders, etc. Apart from that, I also coach a lot of leaders who are non-HR leaders on how they have to run their teams. What are the different elements and what are the different aspects of, let's say, how do they level up from where they are? What is that will help them change the way the organization looks at them? So these are 3 things that I focus on. What I'm very thrilled to do as part of the People Anchor is build women leaders to be a lot more confident and take on roles that they don't think that they're ready for.
We were speaking about this. You say like a lot of women takes a break, undue break, I would say, not just the pregnancy break, but after, let's take example, having a kid. Okay, they feel like, say, their life is over. Okay, let's say, do you think like those kind of things need to be changed in society? Or
I don't think it's not the right way to look at it. Okay. I think people take breaks, women or men, they all take breaks for various reasons. Please. But I think a lot of times women want to be fully ready before they take on the next role.
Got it.
When they level up, they want to feel like they're ready. And then they hesitate to take on some of these roles. What they lack is not confidence. They just need a push. They just need a nudge from somebody to say that you don't have to be fully ready for you to take on any organization.
Got it.
On a leadership role.
So one more thing which I'm circling back to our starting discussion. Okay, do you think, let's say men, okay, let's say I represent those section of society where I see, let's say, whenever I'm working at a leadership position, whenever I feel anything is going bad, I just go and talk with my peers, because I can find a correlation between my journey and their journey. I talk with my seniors, I talk with my, let's say, a person who is ahead of me. Okay. But in women, I see there is the support system that is missing, or that the link where they should look at.
There are a handful of women who actually got opportunities to be able to hold leadership roles in larger organizations for various reasons, right? See, for example, I think women take breaks when have been taking breaks for maternity, have been taking breaks if, say, their spouse gets a transfer. So there are a lot of people who actually end up sacrificing their careers, right?
Got it.
That is one section of people, which is why you will see that the women population itself is limited. So when the population itself is limited, it's very hard for them to grow into leadership roles. Because you've not been there in that journey, you take a break from the journey. So obviously, it's hard for them to get to that. And the fact that the volume of men is so much higher, the female ratio is so less, that you will see hardly 1 or 2 people in leadership roles. But having even one women leader in the team makes a metamorphic effect in how your organization runs, how your organization succeeds. It's proven that when there are women leaders in the organization is more fair. The way their thought process is more diverse. The productivity increases. There's a lot more empathy. The way you think, the way you act, all of that changes. So today what I'm doing is being that sounding board for women who want to get into leadership roles, or who are in leadership roles, and how do they sustain these leadership roles and continue to grow in that. Because there was a time when I was the only woman leader in Razorpay, and we formed a small group where we felt that there were more women who were ready to take on leadership roles. So this project actually started off with that, on how you're coaching them, on how you're helping them gain that confidence and feel that they are ready to take on that role. So you can never be fully ready in any role. There are some parts of you which are ready, and there is a large part of you which you have to learn on the job, especially when you are in ambiguous roles in startups. The organization itself is dynamic.
Yeah, the roles are not defined. There are, let's say, blurred boundaries and all.
And in how do you manage in those setups? Is it okay to not go on that smoke break?
Mm-hmm.
Are you missing out on something because you don't go? Are you missing out on something because you're not going for a party in the evening because you obviously have other things that you have to take care of and you're not able to go for that party?
Yeah, we have different kind of.
Yeah, and how do I handle these situations? What do I do in this? I'm, sometimes forced to go into these because I feel like I will miss out on a lot of information that happens, or the bonding that happens, or this closeness that I'm able to develop with my manager, and them understanding who I am and where I am personally. And will they judge me because I say that I have a child waiting at home for me, or I have aged parents who are waiting for me? How do I manage myself in situations like this? How do I still continue to be that leader amongst people who may not necessarily have these boundaries that they have to work around? These are, I'm not saying I could not have done it while I was at Razorpay. It would have been a even more powerful and fantastic opportunity for me. But I felt like I wanted to do a lot more. I'm also working on a project that I'll probably speak about very soon, but I'm working on how I can empower rural women to sustain themselves, or to be able to find a career for themselves outside of that. How do they stand on their own feet? How can they be financially independent? These are things that I think is very important. These are some of the projects that I'm working on at People Anchor, and it's very fulfilling. It's very satisfying. I don't make as much money as I used to when I was at Razorpay, but I'm very happy doing what I'm doing.
You always said money is not a part of your journey.
Yeah,
you don't give that.
It's important, but it's not my priority. I've never made choices in my life because of money. There's sometimes I think it's simple things like they are giving me this offer, but I know that my male counterpart would get this much.
Yeah,
right. There is definitely a gap in the salaries. How do I go and negotiate? Because I know that it is there, but I don't know how to put forth that conversation with them. Will I be looked at differently if I'm saying that I need to ask for this? So it's very difficult. I think as urban women, we feel that they have all the answers for it. They can do it. You put up a brave front for so many things, but it's not as simple when you go deeper into it. And I think one of the biggest things for me is to be able to give them that confidence that it's difficult, but it's not something that you can't do.
Yeah.
And I would love to be there for anyone who needs that help.
Yeah.
And I act as that sounding board for them. And sometimes these coaching sessions go beyond 1 or 2 sessions. Sometimes run into weeks on how you plan for your next big step.
Yeah.
And these are one-on-one sessions that I do with people, and for me it's very fulfilling.
And when you do some work which makes a deeper impact, not just on your organization, but with the, let's say, different level, let's say how you can make the change in the society as a whole, correct? And once what I see, let's say you already said, okay, it's a proven skill. Once you have a woman in any leadership position, okay, everything goes, let's say, on a positive exponential. It grows exponentially, the productivity, the culture of the company, the fairness, and everything is looked upon. So of course we need to work on that. And Anu, since you have spent let's say 2 decades in, let's say, people business, I would say, not just a human resource. So how do you think about the financial wellness of the employee, and whose responsibility is that? Is it an organization responsibility, or it's a HR responsibility, or CFO responsibility? What do you say? What do you have to say about it?
See, I think wellness as a concept is broken down into several elements, right? Like you have everybody for a very long time has only been focusing on their careers. Next, they've focused on how do they grow in their careers, which obviously comes with the rewards of compensation, equity. So better title, all of that. And then there's obviously, the COVID and its, and the following years obviously put a lot of importance on mental wellness of people and emotional well-being of people. The focus now should definitely come into also bringing in financial wellness for people. So all of this together is what comprises wellness. One of my last projects at Razorpay that I was working on, and what I continue to work on now with a few corporates, is how do you manage wellness as a program in all of these layers, which touched upon everything but the financial wellness at Razorpay. Financial wellness was looked at very differently. We had some people within the organization who were very strong in managing finances, and they would mentor a lot of people and take a few master classes in Razorpay to talk about it, etc. But we didn't go beyond that. I think it is a collective responsibility. If you as an organization can think about mental wellness, physical wellness, and you talk about career wellness overall in terms of your growth and everything, I don't think anyone really gives so much importance to financial wellness. So I think it is a collective effort. I as an employee should want it. My founders and the leadership in the organization, they have to want it. You should have the finance team and the HR team's cooperation, willingness to also want to implement, to bring about change in that. But it is definitely a collective effort. It is something that is the need of the hour, because the ecosystem today is such that everybody is in a higher tax bracket. Your earning capacity has increased.
Drastically increasing. If you see the data of government, every year the 10% of the CAGR which is coming up, and the salary range and the formalization which is happening with technology, let's say like UPI or let's say GST, okay, you see a lot of people are coming under tax bracket, okay. We need to solve those things, correct? And even the pay scale, let's say people used to say, if you have to earn more, you have to go to US. But what I say, if you have to earn more, you can earn that kind of salary, comparatively that kind of salary in India itself.
Absolutely.
And with the increasing, let's say if you see previously, let's say when I started my journey, okay, 8 lakh package was a tremendous package.
You started your journey with 8 lakhs, my God.
So that was, now if I say to my junior, okay, it's a 8 lakh, they will say I don't want anything less than 20 lakh rupees. Okay. So once this all increasing, the traditional solution which you have in the work, let's say you cannot divide the salary slip in the form which organization want, but what the individual wishes for, okay. If they wish for, okay, having such kind of allowances which will help them and it is permissible by law, they should have that. Okay, that is what the Gen Z or what is the current kind of workforce is looking for.
Totally, yes.
Okay.
And it is very important, right? It is important because we do want to give the government what is rightfully theirs, but we also want to make sure that, everybody has the same problem. Every person will go and ask the HR, how do I increase my take home? How can I pay less in taxes rightfully? How do I get more net with the salaries that I'm making? Because sometimes you move by 5 lakhs, 10 lakhs, but your tax bracket will eat away most of what your increment has been. You worked very hard to be where you are, and you obviously want to enjoy as much of it for yourself as you can, because there are as many expenses also, right? So if you are able to give that to your people, they could invest it wisely. They could maybe fund the next startup, which will obviously help the economy as well.
And they can, even the consumption economy will be the boosted. Yes. Okay, let's say you consume anything, okay, that tax money you pay as a GST, okay. Yeah. And once you have money moving into the economy, rather than going to, let's say, undesired place, okay, so that will also create a, let's say, a bigger economy, the consumption economy, okay, that is driven, and let's say whatever we are talking of 5 trillion economy for India to achieve, that might be possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
So with this concluding thought, what I would say, let's say thanks Anu for coming here. Okay, it was pleasure speaking. Okay, I just got how significant the HR can play the role. Let's say how you have played the role in Razorpay, starting from, let's say, 10 people to 2,500 people, and you have maintained such. Now you are just trying to change not just for the Razorpay, but you are just trying to do it for the larger audience by creating a company called the People Anchor, where you help women to become a leader and just also to coach the leaders how to run the show.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming, Anu.
Thank you, Manas. This has been my pleasure, absolutely, and I've really loved this talk. It took me back so many years and helped me relive a lot of the happy memories that I had from my journey.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye.